WWE have just made even more and even bigger releases. So let's talk about it. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to what was going to be an episode of Dead Man's Deliveries, where I was going to be unboxing, well, not unboxing, just reviewing not only the Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods had an accident, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures, but the whole set. Yes, I do have the whole set. So I was going to be reviewing those. However, that has been put back a little minute because we're going to take a step back and talk about the real wrestling world. More specifically, about the two guys you can see you can barely see clinging on there. Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston of the New Day have left WWE, which is massive news. These are two guys that I think pretty much everyone viewed as WWE lifers, which is a term basically just meaning they're going to be with the company forever. But in recent years, and especially with the TKO sort of stuff and the moves that they're making, it seems like that is less and less of a thing. We're hearing reports that they were basically asked to restructure their deals, their contracts to TKO contracts, which they didn't seem big fans of because it's probably meant less money, less perks, and stuff like that. And for probably less involvement as well. They haven't been involved too much. They've been really wasted creatively. They had that great heel turn at the New Day 10-year anniversary against Big E, and it kind of led to nothing. And then Grayson Waller joins the New Day for some reason, and I don't know where this leaves him because the New Day are gone. Big E, of course, chances are he will never wrestle again. He broke his neck a couple of years back, which has kind of put the New Day into a weird position without Big E, who was at that time the biggest star of the three. So, it's a really tricky one to navigate, of course, but you kind of always thought that these two guys would be around. Xavier Woods has been in WWE for 16 years, Kofi Kingston 20 years, which is crazy. Kofi Kingston feels like he's been around forever. There's only a couple of guys in the company that have been around longer than he has. I don't know if it's any more than R-Truth and Randy Orton, but you say that. They tried to get rid of R-Truth last year as well. About, 6 to 8 months? Probably about 8 months ago. They tried to get rid of R-Truth. And, well, they basically released him, didn't they? They weren't offering him a contract he was happy with. So probably the same situation. They got him back because of the backlash. But I don't see that happening this time. It's a mutual decision. I don't think the New Day want to stay, especially in this creative direction. I can't imagine why they would, which is, very interesting. Where does this leave Big E? I mean, he isn't a big part of WWE programming. He's basically on WWE like pay-per-view or what they call now premium live events. He's on like the pre-show and the post-show, and that's kind of it of his ambassadorial role or whatever kind of role he's really in, because he can't wrestle. He's been on screen a couple of times with the New Day. Apart from that, that's it. The New Day were tag champs. When were they tag champs? I can't really remember. Were they tag champs recently? And then the Vision won them off them? I can't remember who was tag champs, to be honest, before the Vision. If it was the New Day or if it was it wasn't AJ Styles and Dragon Lee. That was before that, right? I don't know. To be honest, I don't keep up that much with the WWE at the minute, especially because they're pissing me off increasingly doing stuff like this and the fucking bullshit that was WrestleMania and all the adverts and stuff. But we're just getting further and further away from the WWE that I remember from growing up. Kofi Kingston was always around. Kofi Kingston was such a highlight of the mid card, and he should have been so much more. Kofi Mania is one of the biggest moments in WWE history. I think it's just a perfect storyline. It was meant for Mustafa Ali, and he would have been great there as well. But it was natural. Um, I can't think of the word that I was thinking of, but it just happened, and it's one of the best storylines in the TV leading up to there when they had the gauntlet match. And Xavier and Big E are fighting. They're fighting for their lives for their brother Kofi Kingston to go on to WrestleMania. The Usos, who are probably the New Day's biggest feud, and one of the biggest tag feuds WWE's had in the last 10 years, they put their differences aside and said, you deserve to go on to WrestleMania for Kofi. And Kofi won the WWE title. He was majorly fucked over when SmackDown moved to Fox because they weren't interested in Kofi Kingston. They wanted Brock Lesnar to be the champion. And one of the biggest and best stories, probably of the 2010s as a whole, or this century, maybe this century, one of the biggest stories, Kofi Mania, came to an end in, was it 19 seconds? One F5 from Brock Lesnar. That was it. It might have been even less than 19 seconds. That's just the number I've got in my head. It was really bizarre. He should have. There's a lot of mistreatment of stars over the years. Obviously, there's a lot of missed opportunities. One of them that I always think of is Luke Harper, aka Brody Lee. Back at WrestleMania 33 when Randy and Bray were feuding for the title. He should have been in there. I wouldn't have had a problem with Luke Harper winning the WWE title there. I know he didn't speak much, but I just think it would have been so much more interesting. At least should have been a triple threat, to be honest. And it would have helped the match because the match was not great. Guys like Dolph Ziggler as well, for how great he was. He was never a WWE champion. He was a world heavyweight champion. But everyone knows during that period of time, it was kind of the second belt, right? But you can't tell me that him and Kofi couldn't have been feuding for it. Kofi had that incident with Randy Orton where he missed a spot, or he got up from something he shouldn't have got up for, or he didn't get up for something he should have got up for. Sorry, maybe it was that. I can't remember. Against Randy Orton, and that kind of buried him when he was on a good run. Randy's kind of got a history of that. He did the same to Mr. Kennedy when he landed funny on a back body drop, and that was kind of the end of Mr. Kennedy. But Kofi bounced back from that because he's a great wrestler. He'll always be remembered as, for first and foremost, Kofi Mania at WrestleMania 35. That whole story. Of course, they're the longest reigning. Are they still the longest reigning tag champs, or did the Usos beat them, right? But they have so many tag title reigns. They were the hosts of WrestleMania. Kofi, of course, has that. What is that word? I can't remember. But everybody knows him for his Royal Rumble escapes. It was one of the best parts of the Rumble pretty much every year. He's got the one where he's on the announcer's chair. Did John Morrison do that spot as well? Not that same spot, but he had a couple of elimination escape spots as well, right? When he was on the barricade and stuff. And Kofi's got the one with the pancakes. He has the pogo stick, and one. Yeah, that's that one, and one he lands on Big E. That one where he goes over the turnbuckle and lands with his feet on the steel steps, and he's on the floor. That one is mental. He'll always be remembered for those things. Xavier Woods was kind of the he was never seen as a huge star by the WWE. I think out of the three of them, obviously he was seen as the lesser of all three of them in status wise, because he's the only one that never held a world title. Not even that, he's the only one that didn't hold a singles title, full stop, which I didn't understand at all. He was the king of the ring, but they kind of downplayed that and they just had him get beat immediately after it. I think he should have won a singles title. I'm not saying he should have won the world title, but it would have been fitting if he did. All three of them would have then won it. A bit like Heath Slater with three-man band. What a great faction that was. But the New Day will go down as one of the best tag teams in WWE history. And I'm pretty sure over the past few years, that's what they've kind of been marketing them as. In lists and stuff like that, they've had them as one of the best tag teams in WWE history. I don't know if they're going to kind of erase that now. Because where do they go? Do they go to AEW? Chances are, I think yes. Um, Obviously, it's very different without Big E, but we'll probably get the New Day versus the Young Bucks at some point now. In another world, Big E wouldn't have this injury, and we'd watch the full New Day against the Young Bucks and Kenny, aka the Elite. But they've got so many great tag matches they can have in AEW. The tag division in AEW is pretty stacked, and WWE does not know how to handle tag team wrestling. Since SummerSlam, when they had that big ladder match, they've just done absolute bullshit with it. AJ Styles and Dragon Lee's run with the titles was pretty cool. On the other side, the Wyatt Six, it was a failed experiment. Um, it's always tricky with those kind of gimmicks, when the bell rings. What do you do? How do you stay this spooky? But they kind of held the titles hostage, and the SmackDown tag division was probably the hottest thing on the roster on SmackDown last year. They should have given it a spot on WrestleMania. Absolutely should have had a spot on WrestleMania. They had so many great teams. There's the Street Profits, there's Fraxium, there's Motor City Machine Guns, there was Los Garza as well. Have they just been released as well? I feel like they have, but I'm not 100% sure. I think Los Garza are gone. Who else just left? Tonga Loa left as well as JC Mateo, which is fucking embarrassing. He was in the company for like a year and had four singles matches. I think he had 4 singles matches, which, I mean, I don't know what was really expected of him. They didn't book him in a way that he should have been booked, and they didn't have him in play a kind of a persona that he should have been. He was a monster back in Ring of Honor and stuff like that. If you go and watch some of his clips, he was an absolute monster, and they just had him in street clothes in the Bloodline. The Bloodline shit needs to end, man. It is so old. It is so old. Tonga Loa was never going to last very long because he's kind of awful. But I've not even talked about any of the other releases. Alistair Black is wild to me. I don't get how he was released so soon. A couple of weeks ago, there was the rumors that he was going to be the third man in the Cody Randy story and be the man in Randy's ear. And they shot that down, chose Pat McAfee, who didn't even want to really be in it himself. He removed himself from it just for Alistair Black to be released very soon after, when that's a gimmick he's wanted to do for years, that Dark Father sort of gimmick. His wife, of course, Selena Vega, is also gone. The Motor City Machine Guns are gone. The Wyatt Six are gone. The New Day are now gone. The tag division is just being fucked. Los Garza, I don't know if they're gone. Like I said, I think they might be, though. The Street Profits have not been on TV for so long because Triple H doesn't like Montez Ford for ruining the women's division for the next year with getting Bianca Belair pregnant. But it's not his fault. Well, I guess it kind of is, but it's not at the same time. Well, I just don't know where the tag division goes from here. They don't have enough quality or enough time really for two sets of tag belts anymore. I don't think they don't have enough teams. They don't put enough time and effort into it, and none of them get onto TV or for that. Well, not TV. They do get on TV. They don't get on pay-per-view/premium live events. WrestleMania, you've got 13 matches. You've got like 8 hours of wrestling. Well, like 2 to maybe 3 hours of wrestling and like 5 hours of ads, right? You have so much time to fill to put tag wrestling on the show. The Raw tag champs are fighting in a 6-man tag because the belts aren't worth defending, I guess. The SmackDown tag champs are nowhere to be seen. R-Truth and Damian Priest are the SmackDown tag champions, and you've just released the Motor City Machine Guns. You're trying to cut the pay of the New Day, and you've lost them, and the Wyatt Six are gone as well for Weber Truth. I don't understand it. They had Demolition going into the Hall. Did they go into the Hall of Fame? Is that why they were there? They were at ringside, right? And they showed that during the women's tag title match because no other tag titles were on the show, which is just embarrassing. I don't understand it. The tag titles were seen as such a high point in the company just a couple of years ago. WrestleMania 39, the Usos, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens headline, albeit it's night one of WrestleMania, but they headlined a night of WrestleMania with the tag titles. And then in the fallout of that, when Roman wasn't around a whole lot and that he had all the titles, the tag titles were the kind of the big thing for a while. They held it, and then Judgment Day had it, and then they split the tag titles again, and it hasn't been great since. I mean, we've had some decent short runs. The Machine Guns and the Profits. Braxium haven't held the tag belts yet, have they? Or did they? I cannot remember. But yeah, this video was supposed to be about the New Day. It spiraled into some other things because I don't really talk about wrestling that much anymore. I don't because I this series I feel like I'm going to change it to being called Wrestle Rambles or Wrestling Rambles. But I did used to do this quite a lot just to kind of get my thoughts out. Oh, I was planning on making this into a podcast at some point if anyone would like to join. But I'd probably need to be a bit more popular for that. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna do these videos a bit more, just because I think it keeps me up to date with wrestling a bit. Albeit I am not interested in WWE at the minute. I could not give a shit, to be honest. So good for the New Day for getting out of there. I really thought they would stay forever, but clearly they're not taking the disrespect of being told, yeah, we'll keep you around if you take a pay cut. Which fair enough, because those guys have been great servants to WWE, and they don't deserve that. So I'm happy for them. Hopefully they do well wherever they go. Chances are it's AEW. Hopefully we could see the New Day or the New Dawn, which I've heard someone refer to them as, which is actually not a bad name, versus the Young Bucks at All In at Wembley, which would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? But yeah, let me know what you think of these releases and any of the others in the comments. And any other videos you'd like to see, any other wrestling topics you'd like me to talk about, I will definitely try and get to. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.